The cloth pouch felt strangely light. I kept reaching into my coat pocket as though my fingers expected to find the weight of my grandmother's gold bracelet inside. Instead, they found only soft linen and empty space. The bracelet had paid for another day in the intensive care unit, at least. That was what I believed. When the hospital cashier handed me the receipt, I folded it carefully beside a handwritten note that simply read, "We're gonna bring you home, Dad." For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. Illness rearranges a family. Conversations shrink into numbers, insurance, co-payments, pharmacy bills, parking tickets. You stop asking how everyone feels and start asking what everyone can afford. I emptied my savings without hesitation. When that wasn't enough, I sold old investments. My mother insisted I leave the remaining jewelry with her. It isn't safe sitting in your apartment while you're at the hospital. I trusted her. This is often the most expensive thing we own. My father survived. Recovery was slow but hopeful. The machines disappeared one by one until only ordinary silence remained in his room. He squeezed my hand before leaving the hospital. "You've carried too much." I smiled. "I've carried what I could." For a little while, it felt like enough. 4 days later, I was eating lunch at my desk when my phone lit up with photographs, palm trees, turquoise water, my younger sister laughing on a catamaran, our shopping bags lined across a hotel bed. The caption read, "Finally living my dream. Hawaii was worth every penny." I stared longer than I should have. Maybe she'd won something. Maybe a friend had paid. Maybe hope is remarkably creative. That weekend we gathered for dinner at my parents' house. Dad looked thinner but stronger. Everyone spoke carefully around him, as though health itself might shatter if voices became too loud. Dessert arrived. Only then did I ask. Hawaii looked beautiful. My sister smiled. "It was incredible. I didn't know you could afford it." She laughed. "You practically paid for it." I frowned politely. "What do you mean? Your credit card?" She waved her fork through the air. "Relax, I only spent about 100,000. The room fell quiet. Even she seemed surprised by how casually she'd said it. I couldn't help smiling, not because it was funny, because nothing else made sense. "My credit card has a $100 limit." She blinked. "What?" "I keep it for emergencies. It couldn't buy dinner for 4, let alone Hawaii." She stared at me. "I used the black card." I tilted my head. "Did you check whose name was on it?" Nobody spoke. My mother's face slowly lost its color. I knew that expression. It was the look people wear when memory arrives all at once. Weeks earlier, I'd left 2 envelopes on the kitchen counter before rushing back to the hospital. One held my prepaid emergency card for pharmacy expenses. The other contained a premium corporate card entrusted to me by an elderly financial client. I was scheduled to return it after helping organize documents for his estate. Both envelopes looked almost identical. My mother had put everything somewhere safe. Apparently, she had also decided my sister deserved a vacation. "And the jewelry?" I asked quietly. Her hands trembled. "I pawned it. For Dad's treatment?" Silence, then tears. "I thought we'd replace it before you noticed." My sister looked from my mother to me. "I thought you gave it to me. I never knew where the money came from." For the first time that evening, she sounded less defensive than frightened. Not because she'd spent it, because she suddenly realized it had never been hers. Monday morning, my phone rang. The elderly client, his voice remained calm. His bank had flagged unusual international charges. "I assume there's been some mistake." I told him everything, exactly as it happened, no excuses, no missing pieces, just the truth. The investigation took weeks, statements, receipts, security footage. The bank's fraud department cared very little about family misunderstandings. Facts replaced assumptions. Because I had reported the missing property immediately and fully cooperated, responsibility settled where it belonged. The client was reimbursed through fraud protections, while the remaining financial obligations shifted to those who had authorized and used the card without permission. No courtroom speeches. No dramatic confrontations, just paperwork. Sometimes consequences arrive wearing business suits instead of anger. Dad came to see me a month later. He carried the small cloth pouch. Inside was my grandmother's bracelet, recovered not because everything had been fixed, because my mother had quietly worked extra shifts and my sister had sold nearly everything she had bought on the trip. Dad placed the pouch on the table. "I spent years believing you were the strongest." He looked at his hands. "What I really did was expect you to survive whatever we asked." Neither of us spoke for a while. Then he reached across the table. "I'm learning the difference. The bracelet fits my wrist again. I wear it rarely, not because I'm afraid of losing it, because it reminds me that love isn't measured by how much you surrender. These days, if my family asks for help, I listen. Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. The answers are different now, not because I love them less, but because I finally understand that rescuing people from every consequence had nearly cost me the one thing I couldn't pawn and buy back, my own place in my life."